Hey everyone. Um, yeah, sorry I missed yesterday. Still trying to figure out when I'm going to do these. Looks like morning's still the best. Kids go to bed and I don't really feel like jumping on the live at this stage, but see how we go in the future when we get a bit more settled in maybe. Um, this has been an interesting bounce for me today. We kind of see it coming through. Turns out that the daily 25 and 1 Bollinger Band provided the support on Bitcoin. Basically, let's just show you what that looks like. So yeah, just didn't break and hold the bottom of that daily. Now the daily is quite contracted here as well. So volatility on the daily is pretty low. Typically that will lead to a decent move. The question being, is it going to be upside or downside? And at this stage, I'm concerned about this area here. So the top of the Bollinger Bands on the daily, you got the 200 EMA on the 1 hour, sorry, on the 4 hour, 800. Hang on, I gotta remember which one I'm looking at. Yeah, that is the 800. So yeah, 200 on the 4 hour. It's going to be a pretty decent resistance level, typically. The thing is, there is a fair bit of room to move on a lot of the higher time frames. So if we get a volatility increase here, then like a lot of these moving averages and stuff, the forward backward indicator, they're suggesting there could be a break to the upside here. There's room to move. Okay. They're not super overextended at the moment, but this here is going to be a very key level, just around that early 86. It might spike a little bit higher up into this vector here. On the 1 hour, if we look at the vectors, we've got one sitting here, which up into the sort of 86.7 area. That is a potential target. I suspect if we spike there today, it probably won't go much higher than that before we get a bit of a pullback. Could be completely wrong there. We are hitting a number of key resistance levels here, and this trend line here will probably pull us up as well if we do get that far. It's not a super strong one, but it is a trend line nonetheless that should be paid attention to. The other concern for me is we're actually retesting the bottom of this. Well, it was effectively a bull flag at the time, but it broke to the downside. Now, coming back inside here, we could actually flag for a little bit longer in this same range before we actually break either side again. Of interest to the linear regression channel on the 1 hour has actually started to track to the upside. Typically when this changes direction like that and we are high up here, it can grind to the upside through that. So just similar sort of thing to what was going on here, just sort of grinded up, but more like this kind of thing. So, you know, it can spike through that area. It's not a great example either. I'm thinking of one that I can't seem to find right now. Yeah, something like that, but kind of like this. So we could sort of just grind a bit sideways and up slightly, just into that 86k, a bit over 86k, and then we could potentially see another pullback. All moving averages are still kind of postured to the downside. They haven't really crossed yet. So you've still got your 50 below the 200 on the 1 hour. It's just the fact that it's sort of stopped here and it's trying again and still hasn't been able to break through suggests that that is a fairly strong level. If we do break above that, this 86k level is so close to it that I'm not sure it's going to be much more than just a break and a failure. And it's important to look at the total versus stable coins as well. On the daily, obviously that's a pretty strong candle so far. That's closing in a minute. So closure above that 9 EMA there's a good sign. Still haven't been able to close above the 13 though. Obviously there is a horizontal line there which has been an area of interest in the past. I'm more looking at obviously the bull market support band, support trend line again, this green one. That's going to be fairly critical for me. It's just interesting that we bounced off this downward trend line as well. So closures back within there and sort of confirmation within there, then you're looking down here, you're looking at a much bigger drop across the board for crypto. But at the moment, it is showing a little bit of strength. I am concerned about today's candle, given it is April 2nd and all that tariff nonsense is going to come to a head. Yeah, it's just a bit of a coin flip at the moment. This bull market support line has been the key one to sort of break above and hold, and we haven't done that yet. And typically we don't do that. Historically, that's not something that really happens very often. This is the break here in 21. So you can see here it tested a couple of times, broke through, tried again a couple of times on the daily, and then just went smashed to the downside. The difference here is we were a lot closer to the high when it did that. We've actually come down quite a bit before we've hit it this time. So it is a different market. There's no doubt about that in my mind. We could sort of bumble around here for a little bit and go sideways until we actually meet up with this trend line. And then that becomes a key point for further downside. That would actually be very interesting because it gets us out into May. So yeah, could be some shitty sideways action on markets in general. I'm not expecting us to go to all-time highs quickly. The liquidity hasn't come back into the charts yet. All right, so I think I've covered off most of that. That is a key area for us, but that total versus stable coins, I think, is sort of suggesting we've got a little bit of momentum on our side. I'm actually not, it doesn't have the same level at the moment of resistance, so I guess you could call this a bit of a resistance level. There was a support there. There was a retest of that level there. So, yeah, okay. Maybe that is a decent level. Given that we've actually closed above, these EMAs on the hourly are in pretty good stead at the moment for further upside, and closing above that 200 EMA on the hourly for this chart is a good sign. We just need to hold it. If we do break below that, then that's actually not going to be that great. I'm going to be looking for retest back down into this area. And Bitcoin will probably come with it. So where could Bitcoin find a bit of a base? Obviously, you've got two big hourly vector candles here. The interesting thing for me, Sol had a similar candle. Sol went basically back down to this low though, and Sol's just recovered that. So Sol double topped here. That's not a good sign. That's quite a bearish sign. But it did, in doing that, it's come back and recovered the majority of this vector wick here. So Sol's struggling a bit today. It doesn't seem to have the interest that Ethereum had. So Ethereum went with Bitcoin, didn't double top. It's kind of doing it now, but this linear regression channel's gold for finding areas that you could potentially reverse from. Or getting the extent of the move anyway. So Ethereum's actually had a good day. It has left some vector candles as well though. It's just whether we can hold some of these key levels. So the 4-hour Bollingers, we're inside that now. We haven't hit the mid-band of the Bollingers yet. Typically I like to see that when you do get across inside. Typically you're at least hitting it eventually. So be good to get some support off the 200 EMA here. 200? That's man, I can never remember which one I've got on this. I've got to make them the same colours. Yeah, that's all right. Oh no, this is okay. So I keep forgetting which chart I'm on. That is a 200 EMA there. So breaking below that, we do still have the 50 EMA here at the bottom of the Bollinger Bands on the 4-hour. So 1860 is a pretty good level. I'd expect it to come a little bit further than that down into the wick of the vector candle. And then there's not a lot below that. We've recovered most of the vectors. There is a bit of a stopping volume vector here down into 1790, but at this stage, I'm kind of looking for him to find support off the 200 EMA there. We don't really have any gaps to the downside on CME as well. So that is a good sign for me. There is one here. What's that? So that would be at 80,400. I don't think we're going back there right now. CME is closing pretty positive. Still a bit of room to move. The 200 EMA on the 4-hour for CME, which is at the top of the 4-hour Bollinger Bands as well, is at about 87,800. So that's sort of suggesting that we could actually reach into the 87k mark on Bitcoin as well, on normal Bitcoin. Typically normal Bitcoin's about $500 below CME at the same period at the moment, $300 to $500 from what I've seen. So it looks like it's trying to break through this, but yeah, I think 86.5 to 87 is going to be a very, very interesting level for me. All right, I'll have a look at some others, and again, that's going to be coming up into this level here, which I think is going to be a stronger resistance level. Might get a little bit higher than that, just pick up that sort of level there. I'll have to wait and see. Just going to quick look at levels. So the other thing is with cyclic RSI on the hourly is still got a lot of momentum to the upside. It has pulled back a little bit, but it can still go a little bit higher. We are sitting at a pivot level as well, with another pivot level above at 86, high 86s. So that's kind of in confluence. There is obviously this vector candle here, about the same level, 86,800-ish. That's going to be of interest for us. Previous week's high at 88,700. I don't know if we'll get that far. There isn't a lot of liquidity at that point, but let's see how we go. I don't know what's going on with this. Let's have a look at 3-day. So there is a bit up around, what the? That's so weird. This site seems to be having issues at the moment. Bit of a gap after 87. Just go back to model 1. Yeah, so this liquidity that's coming here, I think, would be a target. So might only just tap into it at about 86, bit over 86. But if we go out, I think there's some more from memory. Yeah. So again, that 86, bit over 86 is a pretty key level. It's not a lot around the 87 mark, and you're starting to push up into here, which if we do get a decent run, there is a chance that we actually push through into the 90s. It's all going to depend whether this is just a push up and then a drop. So massive liquidity at 88, 89k. That does interest me. Whether we pull up stumps at about 89k or not, or go into the 90s, I actually think that we would probably spike into the 90s from there. Probably just pick this one up here, even 91. That's a stretch though, and you need sell orders to be coming into the charts once you're getting up in here to actually want the market to want to move into that area. Market wants to go where people want to trade. So at the moment, that looks like at least 86, and then we'll have to sort of wait and see what happens. Not super confident about it going much further than that, at least in the next couple of days. But Bitcoin, if Bitcoin's properly bullish, then it just does what it wants. It'll potentially do that. Have a quick look at sentiment. So sentiment is pretty good. Yeah. So it's still sitting at 80 for smart money. Smart money is pretty bullish at this point. I think that is a pretty good sign going into 2nd of April in the US. IBIT had some decent trades around the bottom here, and this does it is starting to look like accumulation rather than distribution. There has been some bigger sells towards the top as well, which have led to downside. So a little bit choppy in there. I think, again, if we move out to sort of last 90 days, it doesn't really make a dent in what happened across the top. A couple of them are showing up now. So, yeah, starting to reaccumulate a little bit maybe. That's why I'm thinking at this stage, whatever we end up with here, we'll probably find another leg down. Could be wrong, but it's just these guys have taken their money off the table. They haven't put it back into the charts yet, from what I can tell. Coinbase as well. hasn't really had anything huge come through for it down the bottom here, so it's a little bit sus, but Marathon Digital has had a little bit come through at the bottom, but it's kind of got the same size trades all the way down. This one here is the biggest sign that maybe people like this as a bottom. I do like to see a bit of chop like this towards the bottom. It suggests there's some liquidity grabs before the next move. 2x Coinbase ETF hasn't had anything major come through again. So that, a little bit of a negative sign. Consumer Staples had a decent trade on it, Savo. Oh, US time this afternoon. That could be seen two ways, but not really getting a huge read. This is still in an uptrend. If we do see XLP pulling back a little bit and XLY actually accelerating to the upside, then that could suggest that the bounce is real. And we'll look at what that is actually doing at the moment in a second. So XLF kind of in a very heavily traded zone, this one. If we break back out of this area, so above sort of that, I think that's about 50.2 level. If we break above that, then that would actually suggest a decent upside move on markets. If we break back below these, even that level there, it's going to suggest that these were sells and distribution, and the next leg down could be coming quicker than a lot of people think. So just key to keep these charts in mind. One good thing at the moment is cumulative volume delta on spot has actually been gradually increasing. It sort of saw the low come in, and the moves up while price was coming down was a really good sign that we were actually going to keep going. This bit here was a bit of fuckery by the markets just to wipe out some liquidity. Pissed me off. I ended up hedging a position because I was not able to sit there and watch it. I saw it starting and no, fuck. And then by the time I got back to it, my hedge was in the red anyway, so it was annoying. That's what crypto does to you, though. So yeah, this area here is a little bit concerning. There is still an uptrend on futures, and spot as well is still sort of uptrending. So green candles, when you got a lot of red in the actual price action, is typically a pretty good thing when it comes to CVD signals. So yeah, this kind of, it looks like a mini bull flag at the moment on the 15-minute. Even if we look at it on the hourly, that's a pretty positive sign. So not expecting this to drop sharply. These two candles here are an issue in that there is a lot of liquidity in there to grab if it wants it. But when you look at it in terms of ratios, yeah, there is a fair bit down to 84, low 84s, but I don't know whether it'll do much more than a quick swipe down if it does that. I actually expect it to go up first into that 86 level and then come back down into the 84 level. And then we'll have to wait and see what happens. Like, that could actually be the move today in the Asia session. Could be up to 86, down to 84-ish, potentially lower. I don't like that candle sitting there. But anyway, up to 86, down to 84, and then we start back to the upside, depending on what the market wants to do around tariffs. But yeah, at the moment, that's kind of what it's looking like to me. So just quickly looking at NAS. Oops, I'll just move that. Okay. Pretty decent move up today. Swiped the low, which we were kind of looking for. Swiped that low. We haven't swiped this low yet, though. Anyway, that's the most recent low, so a little bit of a gap fill up here at 19,793. A little bit disappointed we didn't get down to 18,443 as well, but there was some pretty decent buying off the low here, so can't really complain too much about that. Volumes still aren't massive. I mean, we've recovered half of this daily vector. Yeah. The volumes aren't huge. Obviously, there was some decent buying here to stop the freight train. So they're taking a bit of a rest at the moment, but kind of want to see a little bit more volume coming back through. And I guess after tonight, it probably will. It's just a matter of which direction it's going to go in. Like that retest of that trend line there, typically that would lead to a lot more downside and into this 17,400 level, which I don't know why I haven't got that marked off. No, should be a pretty key level. So yeah, that to me looks pretty nasty. If we just go, yeah, momentum is swinging a little bit, but it certainly hasn't confirmed to the upside at all. BBWP's not really giving us any direction. Global liquidity is still coming down as well. But it looks like it might be trying to turn around as well. So the Qs has found support off that trend line. That's, I guess, a saving grace there, but still the rejection of the 200 moving average there is not ideal. We got the 50 EMA about to cross the 200 EMA on the daily as well. Potentially. Ugh. I mean, these were good levels for a bounce, but it just, we need some confirmation. Either way, the markets are on a knife edge at the moment. Equal weight recovering this trend line here, didn't actually close a day below that in this last dip, and the fact that the equal weight did swipe the lows as well is a good sign, I think. So there is a chance that this gets a little double bottom recovery, which could pull us up into basically into a vector candle recovery towards the highs here, up around 606 on the SPY. That's kind of what I'm looking for out of this. Yeah. That is a potential. I'd be looking for rejection levels around there, though. Equal weight on S&P 500 didn't actually swipe the low, but again, it's back above a key trend line too, so it's just we're sitting around that 200 EMA and we're below it, so you've got to be pretty careful if you're going long at these levels. good spot for a DCA, but tricky one to actually trade on leverage. Yeah, IWM. This is a pretty good support level for it. It has been a decent level in the past. That was the top of a accumulation zone. It's retested that plenty of times in the past. Breaks below this level are probably going to be pretty nasty on the market as a whole. And IWM, excuse me, IWM's got a long way to go. A lot of companies are revising targets, profit targets and stuff, from revenue targets down quite a bit as well, to levels that we haven't seen in a long time. So that doesn't bode well for the market long term. XLY, XLP, if that can get back above this trend line, particularly this, what was supposed to be a support line, that would suggest we're going a little bit higher. But again, it's got a lot of overhead resistance. XLP versus SPY, it does look like it wants to start coming down. So it hasn't confirmed to the downside yet. Volatility is still quite high. But it's a good sign that at least it's putting in a couple of red days at the top. Equal weight XLY XLP, back above that little support line. That's not a bad thing. Equal weight XLP versus SPY, again, it's kind of looks like it does want to pull back a little bit. All the moving averages are starting to cross the upside, and there's a lot of momentum to the upside though on this, so it is suggesting we need to be very careful with longs on the general market. Could be continuation to the downside coming. KRE, again, it's below even the short-term moving averages. It's rejected the 200 EMA on the daily. It is finding some support at this trend line, which it just needs to hold that trend line. If the market starts going up and it starts confirming above the 200 EMA, then vector candle recovery is a potential thing here, up into 63.6-ish. This one's looking a little bit nasty, so financials. So KRE's regional banking, this one's the financial sector. This is looking like it wants to form a head and shoulders. At the very least, distribution pattern along the top. The fact this hasn't pulled back more is still suggesting there might be a bit more in the markets yet as well. But yeah, I'd be looking for this to find some resistance up around this previous high. If we do go back to the upside, the fact that it hasn't come down as much, I don't know, you could see it as a good or a bad thing, to be honest. ITB still struggling. Accumulation here below this level could suggest we will spike back up, but continuation of the downside's not going to be pretty on this. I'm talking daily closure below this previous low here from yesterday. XHB. So again, home builders, it's got this larger trend line here that should act as support. At the moment though, you kind of just want to see this above that support line and breaking this particular trend line as well. That would be handy. SMH, not a bad vector candle recovery there from the other day. And it bounced from that level too. So, good sign. Is it enough? I have to wait and see. DJI gold. This is a key level for it. It needs to bounce here. If we're breaking this level as well, then the market will most likely have another downside leg incoming. Which gold's getting pretty overextended at the moment as well, so could be a good time for it to start pulling back. And DJT and DJI to go to the upside. They both seem to be doing a bit of accumulation at the moment. DJI is surprisingly strong. Like, need to see it finding a bit more strength here, I think, though. It could be a fair bit of fake out happening in the market at the moment with those drops and those low sweeps. VIX, I mean, momentum's still to the upside, so just be careful of that. But a couple of red closes isn't a bad thing. Skew, pull back. So that's not a great sign there. A little double top on skew. That is pointing to a little bit more downside. Didn't exactly like crush to the downside, so it could mean maybe a little bit of sideways on the day. It's not a great sign. I wouldn't necessarily say we're definitely going down based on that, especially when you've got the VIX one day actually pulling back, which generally aligns with markets pulling up, going up. So this one during the day, whichever way this is looking on the smaller time frames, is probably something to keep an eye on if you're day trading tomorrow, which I don't know that's a great idea anyway. While we're up here, I just want to have a look at the advanced decline line. So advanced decline line's putting in a high low at the moment. That's not a bad thing. She's choppy though. The fact that this is a lower high typically isn't great, but at the moment it's not looking too bad, really. Like that's price action. Where's my, like the dip on price action versus the dip on the advanced decline line was significantly different. That's a little surprising for me. Don't know that's a great read, but typically you would suggest that's divergence there, and that should actually lead to a decent upside move. Something to keep an eye on, maybe. I mean, that is an interesting point, and it would, in my eyes, suggest upside, but again, it's just one data point, and I don't know that I'd pay that much weight to it. DAX has actually back above that support line, tested the 50 EMA there on the daily. It's actually reasonably bullish for the DAX. It's coming off a decent reset of momentum too. HSI just coiling at the moment. UK 100. I mean, that looks more negative than the DAX, that's for sure, but The issue here is BBWP looks like it might start expanding here. If it's still momentum to the downside, then I would actually expect UK 100 to pull back further. Japanese market, again, didn't really hit key trend line there, and it's just retesting the 200 EMA on the daily at the moment. So another one to be a bit careful of. That could potentially pull back. So hang on. Oh, that's Apple. What the? How did I do that? Okay, that's weird. I'm literally pressing. I'm pressing the Japanese 225, and it was bringing up Apple. That's freaking bizarre. What did it again? Ah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, look, decent support level there, maybe. It looks like it wants to flush though. I'd be concerned about this wick here if I was trading Japanese market. TLT still kind of just coiling here. High yield junk found some support here as well. A little bit concerned now that we're below that trend line. In fact, this looks like a distribution. If this is accumulation, I'd be really surprised, but it can take ages for these ranges to break as well. So a break to the downside properly of this range, it's probably going to see a larger downside move on the market. LQDIEF, it's not looking great either. Some of these are showing signs that this little bounce that we've had just into the 2nd of April event may be a little fake bounce. Sounds like the kids are up. I'm pretty well done anyway. Global liquidity is tied to this. It's US 2-year looks like it can pull back a little bit further, which is kind of what Trump's been trying to do. He wants to lower yields, and it seems to be working at the moment. Copper pulling back pretty hard. Like I said, come back a little bit further than that. Gold, yeah, a bit of a topping signal yesterday. Left some vectors behind as well, so could be a little blow off top for gold here. Oh, what? That's really weird. I don't know what's happening there. Dixie's just ranging at the moment. It actually looks like it wants to go up. At least a test of the 105 level might be the play. It has left a lot of vectors behind here, so there are some upside targets on it, which is strange. Oil testing the value area high and rejecting it at the moment. It's also 200 EMA on the daily. Aussie oil, yeah. Silver's struggling to get above that, so I don't know. I think silver's been going okay, but it hasn't had the breakout relative to gold yet, and I don't know that it's coming now. It might come a little bit later. It's actually setting up for potentially quite a large pullback, probably into this vector candle support here at about 32.1 for silver. Might look at it again if we get down there and actually get some euro. Euro's coiling as well. It actually looks like it wants to go up. There's not a lot of reason for it to go up, and 111, 112 would be the target there if it did. I'm seeing more reasons for it to actually pull back, potentially into the 105 level, which could hurt US stocks as well, because that would make the US dollar more attractive. Now, is a scenario to consider. Something happens with tariffs whereby they're not as bad, or Trump takes them off or just changes them in some way that the market likes, and people start grabbing US dollars again because they're going to be trading more in it, and US dollar pumps, and that may actually, it may lead to a situation where you get the Dixie pumping at the same time you get US stocks pumping. Interesting scenario. The other side of that, same sort of thing, but US stocks dump because the US dollar is more expensive against them. So kind of could go either way there. Something else completely could happen. It's just something to keep in mind. Global liquidity is kind of retesting this low as well, and that does concern me. We are back below this trend line, which, again, these are definitely regions rather than actual like levels, I would say. But that's not a good sign. If we can't get back above that in the next few days, then I'd suggest we are actually going further down. Apple. So yeah, just be careful, very careful with longs at the moment. Tesla rejected the 200 EMA. 50 is about to cross as well. 300 would be a very interesting level for Tesla. I do like 330 for a rejection level though. So pump up, pull back. There's all sorts of scenarios at play here when there's a lot of different scenarios at play when we're getting into these areas where you're backtracking through a lot of trading. It makes it tricky. What the frick was that sound? That was weird. Yeah, Nvidia is holding this trend line for the time being. $90 for Nvidia seems ridiculous that it would hit that. But that, to me, rejecting the 200 EMA there, momentum to the downside, coming into a very key time. 90 on Nvidia seems, that is something you've got to keep in mind. Now, bounce from there, yeah, probably, and probably a decent bounce, I would think. But that's such a massive volume area. Just going to put a support level in there. It may not go all the way to that, just vector candle recovery, but definitely something to keep in mind. Something in that region. The other play on this, obviously, and this is, most charts look like they could do either one of these. They look like they come down into a key level straight away, or they could bounce up into a key level, vector candle recovery, and then just make their way down. Some of these stocks will come down quicker than others, more volatile ones like Nvidia and Tesla and stuff, but at this stage I'm still kind of leaning towards the bullish side, just because there's still a lot of negative sentiment in the market. But just knowing what's happened through history with busts and stuff, it's a tough read. Shorter time frames if your trading's going to be key. Decent DCA levels here on some of these markets though. RK's gone off as well. The frick? Alright. I haven't heard anything about RK being taken off. Anyway. Amazon. Yeah, key level there for Amazon is a good sign. Meta, same sort of thing. It's got a lot of potential zones to move into from here. Tough read. Airbnb, good level for support there off previous accumulation. AMD is kind of confirming the break above both of these trend lines at the moment. That's a good level for AMD to bounce from. It seems like there's more stocks at potential good bounce levels than there are rejection levels at the moment. They've already had their rejection of the 200 EMA. They haven't shot to the downside. It looks like accumulation across the base on a lot of them at the moment. TSM's probably an exception to that. There are exceptions, of course. Glaring vector candle here, but that could just be for later 2025, 2026 still. Stellantis has broken that low. Ooh. Stellantis needs to get back above that support. If it keeps going to the downside, it's going to be just a signal that there's some major issues in the market, because generally the car market is a pretty good signal for whether the economy's strong as well. Ford's not as bad, so it could just be Stellantis getting belted for mismanagement and stuff. But Aussie market, yeah, looks like it's trying to bounce here. QRE, I did sell out of this the other day. Just wasn't happy with the move on it. Looks like it could still be accumulating though, like this. So this is basically the Aussie mining or energy, I think, actually. QRE. Resources, yeah, that's it. So mining and that. Should be a good level for a bounce, but if we start breaking down again, then again, wouldn't be a good sign. All right, so let's have a look at ETH versus BTC. Coming through some pretty key levels here, like we haven't been this low since 22nd of May 2020. That was an interesting time. Could get a bit lower still. Geez, the guys that have been buying this up are just like, they're still going. They're reaching new highs themselves. December 2020 highs. So yeah, that's these guys are definitely still expecting Ethereum to have its time. And look, it is showing some strength, particularly compared to Sol, and you want it to be showing strength compared to Sol, because you don't want Sol eating up what little liquidity there is in the market for ETH. Interesting Bitcoin dominance, finally pulling up into this vector candle here too. The wick. Anytime I see a wick like that, I want to see recovery of it. Unless you're on an absolute shit coin, then don't count on it. But with something like BTC or BTC dominance, that is a good thing to come into. ETH dominance, still not great, but turning a little bit. Alright, so yeah, Ethereum looks like it is finding a base off this volume node here. Good level for support, but geez, it needs to at least confirm on the daily back above that 9 and 13, and it's pulling back at the moment, but it hasn't really even recovered much of this vector candle here. So I'm leaning at least on crypto for more upside over the next week. The other concern I do have, we are at the top of this channel here. The 200 on the daily is just above us as well. So it's coming in at 85.5, basically where we rejected yesterday. So it has rejected that 200 EMA. We are squeezing a little bit between the shorter moving averages and the 200 EMA. And the 200 EMA hasn't really provided that much resistance for us lately. So, I at least like 86, potentially a little bit higher, up into that 87. Wouldn't surprise me, but it's a decent volume node there. I've got to see the rest of the market going with it. And this channel has been key, so it's coin flip for me at the moment. I'm not tied to any particular direction. I think I'm going to be concentrating on the shorter time frames. This move down at the moment looks like it might actually lead to recovery of this vector candle sooner rather than later. Rejection off that previous trend line as well. I'd still like to see 86. There's too much liquidity there for it to not try and grab that in the next couple of days. I think the fact we've moved up so far, it's just whether these levels are stronger than that.